everything through their own eyes and through their own experience. And I'm sure all of us will see the events that occurred this week and that will occur in the weeks to come through our own lens. But one thing is for certain that all of us can agree on, that the hand of God is very apparent. And we have to trust in our Father in heaven that he will deliver us from all evil and that he will avenge what has happened to us and punish the wicked and bring victory to the righteous. This week's Parsha Bereshis is one of the most difficult parshas in the Torah to really understand. You can translate the words, but the Torah doesn't really tell us much. It leaves it open to conjecture. So when the Torah describes the creation of our universe, it doesn't say how it happened. Vayomer Elokim, the Lord somehow states something and energy comes into the world. And then atoms are created, water is created, light. And then somehow there are birds and animals and grass and trees. And then a human being occurs. The Torah doesn't tell us how any of this happened. Now, one of the interesting things about human society is that until our time, and maybe in our time it still is true, almost universally in the world, all human beings believe that somehow there was a force above that controlled things. Now, they made mistakes. They thought they were gods. They worshiped statues. They couldn't come to a definition of what that force was. Avram Avinu discerned what the force was. Hikir as Boro, he recognized his creator, meaning he understood that there is this great force that no human being can appreciate that controls things. And the basic rule of Judaism is that we are not running the show. There are a lot of things that we have to do. A lot of work has been left for us. But the basic lesson is we are not running the show. It's not us. There's a force, however we define it. And that because of that, therefore, throughout human history, this recognition that there is such a force was practically universal. From the most primitive indigenous tribes in Africa and Asia and America to the great sophisticated scholars of Oxford and Cambridge, of the Sorbonne, and there was a universal agreement that there is such a force. Now, the theologians could argue how to define it. There were various religions in the world that came to explain it. But human beings were aware that somehow they're not completely in control. The arrogance of our generation, in fact, it's an arrogance of the last 150, maybe 200 years, is the denial of the fact that we're not, that somehow we are in charge. There is no such force. So the world concocted all sorts of theories, how this universe came into being, none of which make any logical sense, and none of which can be scientifically proved, because there's no such thing as a scientific proof either. And therefore, there always were evil generations in the world. But as the Gemara explains regarding Sodom and Amorah, or regarding the Tower of Babel, they knew there was a God in the world, but they didn't care. Which is pretty much the situation. That's how good Catholics could be Nazi officers. You know there's a God. You believe in a God. But that doesn't affect your behavior. Judaism came to say that the mere fact that we realize that there is a God and that we're not in charge automatically demands that we have rules of behavior. Because then otherwise, the whole thing is a farce. The Navi says, part of the Haftorah, except not this year, because it's Mocher Chodesh this year. Amzu yotzarti tilosi yadaberu. I have created a people. This people, the Navi Shayo says, and people who call themselves Jews. It's interesting how these terrible events have awakened even in the most distant of Jews the spark of being a Jew. I heard, I'm sure you heard also, Blinken yesterday or 2 days ago. Blinken said, I'm Jewish. Wow. You're not allowed to say that in America. So Tehilosi Yadaberu, they will sing my praises. They will make it aware in the world that there's a God in the world. And we see that the most terrible atrocities were committed and are being committed by people who say they believe in God. In fact, their justification for what they are doing is they're doing what their God tells them to do. So how do you square that circle? That's been the question that has faced the Jewish people over the ages. The Roman Catholic Church for centuries. I mean, we're living just like in the Crusades. They went door to door and slaughtered people. So when you read about it in the Tfilas and the Piyut, You'd think, it's poetry. Every word is prophecy. So who thought that in the 21st century we would behave like in the 12th century? That's part of Chumash Bereshis. That's part of the lesson. So there's a great question that arises on the first word in the Parsha, Bereshis. What does Bereshis mean? There are countless midrashim. Rashi, in his brilliance, chooses three pshatim, three interpretations, all of which have a common theme. Rashi says the first pshat is that Bereshis does not mean in the beginning, but Bereshis means bishvil Reshis. There was a purpose. Because of Reshis, Bora Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, was this universe created. In other words, it's not created at random. It's not just something that happened. But there's a control that brought it into being for a purpose. So what is Reshis? So the first shot is Reshis is Torah. Which Judaism says that the Lord would not have constructed such an infinite universe, so complex and beyond our understanding. If you buy a computer, you get a book with it, a manual. Your phone, whatever, tells you what to do with it. Without that manual, the instrument itself is of very little value because you can't exploit it. So the Ribono Shel Olam, in creating this world, and Chazal already said there are many planets and worlds like ours that we have no concept of where they are or what they're doing. Rabbi Wein in his commentary to Torah says, it's written in the 18th century, he said there's undoubtedly life on other planets in this, and there are other planets and other galaxies. A limitless amount of the ability to have worlds in the world. He says there's probably life there. And they may even be creatures like human beings. He said, and undoubtedly they have a Torah. The question is their Torah our Torah, or different according to their ability? But it's inconceivable to construct this great machine without giving a manual to it, without somehow prescribing how you're supposed to live in it. So we have a Torah that tells us how to deal with animals, how to deal with other people, how to deal with nature. how to live on this planet. We don't have to be climate change environmentalists. We have a law. It says Baltashchis. The famous story of Rav Kook and the tzaddik Rav Aryeh Levine were walking down the street, and Rav Aryeh absent-mindedly plucked a leaf off of a tree as they were passing by. And Rav Kook said to him, "Why did you do that? Why did you kill a leaf?" For no purpose. So that's part of the manual, right? So we don't think about plucking a leaf off a tree. But why would you kill a baby? It's because there's no Baltashchis in the world. There's no concept of that. But it's in the manual. So that's Bishvil Reishis. The world created, this whole thing is so that you should read and follow the manual and be able to use and exploit the gift of life and of our planet that the Lord has bestowed upon us. Rashi says the second shot. Again, not in the beginning. Rashi says, Bishvil Yisrael, Shenikroim Reishis. Jewish people. Sometimes you read the manual. I know that after I read, when I could still read, so I have a big Apple computer that I bought 10, 11, 12 years ago when I had money. Professional, the best one. I read the manual. I couldn't get the thing to do anything. So I had to call in an expert, a technician. He spent a few hours with me, and he made me more or less computer savvy how I'm going to operate this machine that I bought and I want to use. And he showed me the programs I can put on. I can write, I can dictate, I can watch. It'll tell me the time, it'll tell me the day. I can talk to my children, I can FaceTime, all sorts of weird things. But I couldn't do it without the expert, even though I had the manual. So the Rebbeinu Shem created experts in the world called Klal Yisrael. Bishvil Yisrael Shenikroim Reishis. The Jewish people are called Reishis. They're the technicians. You want to know how to treat the world? You don't go to Berkeley. You ask Rav Kook how to treat the world. And the Jewish people have done so throughout its long history. Never wavered in that. The rest of the world, whatever they're doing, they're doing. But now, one of the great ideas is Yisrael Nikroim Reishis. Bilam came along and he said, Reishis Goyim Amalek. Posting in the Torah. The Jews are not Reishis, Amalek is Reishis. That's the struggle. That's the war. who's racist? So as long as the world thinks that racist goyim amalek, so then we have all of this great unpleasantness, to put it mildly. But it's Bishvil Yisrael Shenikroim racist. You want to know how to live in the world? It has to Chofetz Chaim. It has to get a Rebbe. Ask Rav Kook. They're the technicians. They'll turn the computer on for you. They'll make it work. Otherwise, you have a great tool that you are not exploiting. That doesn't carry you anywhere. The third shot that Rashi says, he finally succumbs, and he says, Rashi is the beginning of time. One of the great ideas of Judaism is that time itself is a creation. By Kaviochel, by the force, by the Rabboni Shalom, there's no such thing as time. And in a revolutionary idea, Einstein proved that time is relative. It's not an absolute. So voracious means in the beginning of the creation of time. What exists before time, we cannot imagine because our minds cannot grasp it. It's like many of our senses are such. I mean, dogs can hear a whistle that we can't. So are dogs greater than we are? And maybe some are. So we can't grasp what it means. But we can certainly understand that time itself is a creation. And so that in the beginning of the creation of time, this world fits into it. We operate with time. And in fact, time becomes the most precious of all values that exist in this world. I read a book a few years ago, and I could still read, about the history of clocks, watches, how people measure time. And the author was perplexed. Why are we always hung up on time? And I asked myself more than that. Why is halacha hung up on time? Why is there a Zman Kriya Shema? 9/11, 9/15. God isn't there at 9/17? Shabbos begins 5 to 6. Can begin 5 to 8. What's the problem? Why is halacha so hung up on time? Because time is the original creation. Asher boro Elohim la'asos. God created that man should exploit it. The first creation, Rashi says, is time. And time has to be exploited. In the yeshiva world, the Rebbe used to always say, "Bittul zman." You're wasting time. It's too precious a commodity. The Navi says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Limnos yomeinu keino da v'navi levav chochma." The Lord taught us to count our days so that we would be smart, so that we'd have a wise heart, so we'd grasp the situation. All the Mefarshim discuss why the original generations that we read about in the Chumash, they lived 600 years, 800 years, whatever it is. And later on, we're very grateful for what we call longevity. And Moshe said, 70, 80, 90, what? That's it. How come they lived 600-700 years? There are many, many interpretations, because all of this is one great mystery. The whole Chumash Bereshis is a complete mystery to us. That's why the Rashi quotes Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, the first Rashi, "Lo yatzorich haTorah lahaschil ala b'chodesh hazeh lachem." You don't know what went on in the business. This is all wasted on us. We know what Avraham Avinu was, or Sarah. It's not somebody that you can meet on the street. Yet the Torah tells us about it. So our appreciation of time is because within the context of how the Ribono Shalom finally settled the world, he introduced the fact that time is short. Time is the only thing that's not replaceable. You can lose your money and make it back again. And you can even suffer health-wise and regain it. You can rebuild many things. You cannot get back time. And that was the first creation. The realization that the Creator put a limit on us. And time is humbling. You want to, when I first became a rabbi, I went to Miami Beach after being a lawyer for many years living in Chicago. So my mother, of blessed memory, who was always interested that I should know things. So she used to send, they had a subscription to Time magazine, my parents, because there was a Jewish lady that sold the subscriptions. Mm-hmm. So my father never really bothered with it, but my mother used to read it. My mother was a very intellectual woman. And she would mail the Time magazine to me in Miami Beach, that I should read it, so it came 2 weeks late. There is nothing as instructive in life as reading newspapers and magazines 2 weeks later. Because then you realize that 90% of what they said is either lies or mistakes or distortions or foolishness. That's my recommendation now. Don't listen to the experts. Don't listen to the new 24-hour news. Everybody's saying in Yiddish, we say a boichswar. He's telling you from his stomach how to run the war. Leave it. There'll be 10,000 books written about this war when it's over. because how puny we are. So Rashi, in his choice of Bereshis, it means to teach us there's a purpose here. Purpose is Torah. The purpose is the Jewish people. The purpose is the appreciation of time. And you're going to ask, why does God need it? That's not a question for which human beings have an answer. The Navi said, Kilo machshavosai machshavosechem below darchechem drochoi. You'll never understand me, and you'll never appreciate why I'm doing things. So that's why Jews lived with faith. Why? Why after 1,800 years did we come back here? And why when we come back here, we're constantly at war? And why the whole world depends on us? The whole world turned over here. It's more than the Ukraine. Aircraft carriers, billions of dollars, fighters, like, well, what's going on? Yisrael Yisrael Shenekroim Reshis. And we have to prove that Amalek is not racist. And we have to exploit whatever we can. The Pasuk says, Ish l're'eu yomar chazak. The secret of success is to encourage others. One of the great things that happened to me in life is that when I became a lawyer, a friend of mine who was a successful lawyer helped me, educated me, warned me, was a mentor to me. I didn't realize it then, but I realize it now, that I knew many other lawyers that wanted me to fail. I was having, why should I take their clients? Ish l're'eu yomar chazak. We should want that other people should be successful. We should want that our competitors should be successful. We should want, and we do want, that the Palestinians should also have a high-tech society and should also have everything. But Amalek doesn't see it that way. Amalek wants to be racist. So the Parsha comes to teach us many things. And if we assimilate the lessons to the extent that we can, even in these difficult, and when it's over, you'll be able to tell your grandchildren and great-grandchildren what a time we lived through. These symphony flows every day. Will be of all good strength. Ish l're'eu yomar chazak, and a Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Thank you.